I really believe that there's no failure, it's all lessons. I find that a lot of people are afraid to embrace their full self because what they think others will say. And I started consulting, and then that turned into, hey, we need to build a brand. Would you come on board as a vice president of brand strategy for the Hawks? Yes, I will. What Ted Turner built and his legacy in Atlanta was so creative and so special at that time. So I could come in to a TNT where most people did not look like me, but still be me and contribute. And I was like, if they asked me to go mop the sweat at a game tomorrow, I know how to make a mop and I could go and do it, and I'm not above or below anything. Corporate gives you this false sense of security. Yeah. Getting laid off was probably one of the hardest things and the best things that ever happened to me. And I was just like, CMO, and I was like, why me? And he's like, because you don't want it. Yeah. And I was so intrigued, and I'm like, what? He was like, most people are driven by the perception of power, the perception that, they're gonna make a lot of money, they wanna boss people around, and I have a motto that I've always had is like, I just wanna make dope shit. It's what I'm here to do. Like, I wanna do something cool, I want it to be differentiated, I wanna create impact, and that passion is what he saw. He was like, that's what I need.
Today on Same Game, Different Turf, I get the honor of sitting down with Melissa Proctor, CMO, Chief Marketing Officer of the Atlanta Hawks in State Farm Arena. Just a dynamic individual. We're gonna see someone who just continues to let their guiding principles help them navigate life, even when challenges come their way. In a world where sometimes we're trying to figure out ways to fit into the environment, we're gonna see someone that just continues to lean into their strengths, bringing their full self to the opportunities that come in front of them, which is one of the reasons she's been tremendously successful, and someone who's trusted to continue to bring value. So as a guy that's Liberian, it has shaped me in more ways than I realized growing up. And you have this combination of being Belize and Jamaican. And one of the things that people always talk about you is just being your authentic self. How do you think that background has kind of shaped you through the years to get to where you view the world now?
It's a good question. I feel like so much of my childhood, especially growing up in Miami, of all places, was just like a cultural melting pot of stuff.
Yeah.
And, my mom being from Belize, my dad being from Jamaica, first generation in the States, there's like, you work hard, you do this. Like, it's very, you go to college, there's no questions on any of that. But every summer, either I went to Belize with my mom, or they would ship me off to Jamaica. Like, no one came with me. It was an unaccompanied minor, and going to hang out with cousins and family in Kingston. And I think for me growing up, and I think about it now as an adult, just seeing the difference in the ways of life, of what things were like in Miami, and then going to Jamaica and visiting family in the country, and they're, chickens under the house, and they're washing clothes and hanging them on the line, and just the most joyful and happy and don't need any more.
Yeah.
And then when I'm home in Miami, it's the rat race, and my dream car is a, Lamborghini and a this and a that. And I just always remember being like, but why? Because I could go to the beach and be there and eat some good food and be joyful. But I think seeing both those ways of life, especially when I got older and started working in basketball for the Heat, then I really saw like extreme wealth. And then I call it extreme joy, because it wasn't poverty. It was just a different way of life. And understanding that, you can thread the line between the two and find happiness. And I think a lot of that just kind of spoke to me as a person. And so authentically, to me, it's like, I like it because I like it. Like, I don't feel the need to have to keep up with anybody else or do what everyone else does.
Yeah.
And I think that's just always been a part of me, just based on that exposure.
In talking to people, one thing about you is everybody talks about your joy, and it's so pure and you light up.
That's wild, really?
It is.
That's the word on the street.
That's the word on the street. That's your rap sheet. But then just kind of, if we pull it back, there's also been like tremendous hardship. Being in Miami, y'all get the hurricane, and that just changes the trajectory of your entire family's life. Or, when you first get pregnant and you're married and you get laid off. And so you also have the other side of it, of extreme adversity too. How do you keep your joy through that, and how did those moments shape you?
I mean, if you talk to my best friends, I'd be like, no, she ain't joyful all the time. I mean, it's still human, but I feel like perspective and faith has so much to do with it. And you can choose to see things in certain ways. And I don't know if it's innate. I don't know if it's based on, my parents, but the idea of always kind of looking for perspective and be like, things could be worse.
How
Like
how though?
this,
Like,
I mean, it's kind of like, all right,
yeah.
well, I got a job, I got laid off, but I still live in a home and I have love and I'm cared for and I have my health. Like
Hmm.
there's always something else that could happen. And so I truly believe, I'm a woman of faith, and that has kept me through a lot of things and just challenges where I'm like, I don't know where this is happening, but because God has proved time and time again, like I know I am not in control.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
even my mom was disabled when I left to go to college. She went out on disability and she was a nurse, but my entire adult life was spent taking care of her.
Hmm.
And there were times where, I mean, I'm an only child. We didn't have a ton of money. I think she went through all of her 401k in like the first 6 months that she stopped working because she liked to eat at Red Lobster and shop.
Yeah.
And so I remember when I started college, I'm like, well, what are we going to do? And I'd gotten a partial scholarship. I'd gotten some help to pay some bills. And then, like, I think after my first semester, I applied for an internship, a scholarship.
Mhm.
And the woman in the kind of diversity department was like, Melissa, your mom's on disability. We'll see if we can get you a hardship,
Yeah, yeah.
scholarship. I didn't know what that meant. But what resulted in that was like me pretty much making money in college. And that money I got went to pay her bills. And I had jobs. And it was like, I could have never thought that that was even possible
Mhm.
coming out of high school. But I'm like, it was written. Like and my mom had me at 42 and I was
Yep.
her first and only child. And even with that, I remember aunts being like, you're the miracle child. Like we
Yeah,
never thought she was gonna have a kid. Like my
yeah,
parents were married like 4 or 5 years before I showed up. But I realized even my birth was there for her, in a way, because she couldn't have cared for herself. There was so much that was happening.
hmm,
And that was my role. And I honored that until she passed. And so I really it's always that perspective of like, I may not know where it's coming from, but something's going to come and it's going to work out the way it's supposed to.
hmm.
So even getting laid off when I was pregnant, everyone's like, what are you going to do? Oh
Yeah,
my God. And I was just like, well, I got to have a kid.
yeah.
So can't do much else, other than that. But, the way that unfolded to ultimately end up being able to work for the Hawks that I never dreamed of, didn't imagine at the time. Like everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer in that.
So I think it's fascinating though, just like we'll get to the Hawks, but working in basketball, I think a lot of people know that you were a ball girl and just the tenacity to get that job.
I bugged them. I worked their last nerve.
When you face rejection, and this has happened multiple times on your journey, what is the thing that keeps you pursuing? Like, I'm not taking no, even though this person said, if I call them again, don't do it, like, because I'm not gonna get, and you still being persistent through it.
Um, well, so much of it was my mom, man. She would always have this like, nothing beats a trial but a failure. The worst you could do is, the worst they're gonna say is no.
Yeah, yeah.
So at least try,
Hmm.
And I didn't even think of it at the time. I just feel like it's funny because I look at myself now and I'm like, I wish I had some of my 15-year-old self in me. And I'm sure that I do, but the perspective is different because now I know more. I
Yeah,
know better. Even as an executive, I'm like, don't harass me, people. Like, I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
like being harassed. So, like, I wouldn't do it to others. But then I didn't know any better. And,
Hmm.
and I really believe it was my mom kind of laid the gauntlet down. So I was like, I want a job. She said, get a job, whatever you want to do for the rest of your life. I want to work in basketball. Get a job in basketball. That is your option.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like, oh, I could go to the mall. She was like, no, you said what you wanted, like that's what you need to go do. And so it's weird, it's kind of a reverse psychology thing because I don't think she even knew the impact of what that statement meant. I just knew that she, we had friends who were like, oh, so you're 14, you can get a job at Publix bagging groceries. Nothing wrong with that, and I would have probably loved it at the time. But she was like, no, I want you to at least try to build on something greater of what you may want. And as an idea, I didn't even know where basketball came from. Like in retrospect, I like watching it on TV. That's cool. I never played, but
But I think that's fascinating of pursuing something that's not like your core interest, but it is an opportunity because you're more of a creative artist at
yeah,
heart.
I was creating art. I was doing gallery exhibitions at the time, and I knew so many artists. So to me, the idea of becoming an artist was like, I want to eat.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to struggle. And I saw my mom work really hard, and I didn't know what that meant.
Hmm.
And I didn't think I was like, I want to be a business person. I didn't see what I wanted to be.
Hmm.
But I knew there was a gap when I would watch those games as a fan. There were no women.
Yeah.
There were no women on the sidelines. There were no female referees. There were no women coaches. So I was like, I want to be a woman out there doing whatever they're doing, not playing on the court because I didn't think that I could do that.
Hmm.
This is before WNBA even launched. But as not being a player, I didn't think that was my route. But it was just so interesting to kind of see kind of the world as it shifted because being from Miami, I mean, everyone was Hispanic, it was the superintendent, the principal at the school, whichever, or it was Luke and Trick Daddy, and or the athletes, and it was a whole other world. So, living in Atlanta now, it's such a different perspective. I used to call it Huxtableville because everyone were the Huxtables here. And I didn't see that growing up in Miami. So, part of me was like, I didn't know what being a business person meant. I saw my mom kind of work, my dad just work. But yeah, I think today, someone was like, hey, what do you want to be? I asked my daughter all the time. She was like, I don't know. But she has a very different perspective, obviously, than I did at the time. I'm just so grateful for my mom for like pushing it.
Yeah.
So I don't hear no. At the time, I didn't hear no because I was like, well, I'm just going to keep asking.
Yeah,
if you say no, absolutely not, then that's a closed door.
The
door wasn't closed. It was like, there's a little opening. So I was like, let's try to work through that.
But then, so these are your high school years, but then you go to college at Wake, and why not study sports or study business? You still are in the creative space.
Yeah, I didn't know. First of all, I went to Wake because I didn't have a choice. It was like, you going to college, whatever it was. And I had a lot of friends going to Cooper Union, Pratt, FIT, in the art sense. And I had a great portfolio and actually got into Wake Forest on an art scholarship. And the reason why I went there, I'd gotten into a lot of different schools, but Wake, they asked me to come to Wake as a part of this interview process for the scholarship. And they were like, we want you to interview with everyone in the art department, and we want to put you up in our dorm with a young lady who also got the same scholarship. And I was like, that's cool. Coming from Miami, I've never been to a North Carolina nor a Winston-Salem. So that was total culture shock.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm from Charlotte, so I know.
One world to another. Yeah. And then the woman that they put me in the dorm with was from Anchorage, Alaska. I didn't know they had people in Alaska. And she was Russian. I didn't know what Russian meant. I met her boyfriend, Doug. It was like living in an alternate universe, but I loved the experience. And it was a beautiful campus. It was close. It just felt like a very unique college experience. But after meeting everyone in the apartment, and I had to prove myself, and they're like, they awarded me with the scholarship. I ended up getting other scholarships where I think I sent them slides, old school slides of my art. They're like, oh yeah, you're great. And I felt like I had to prove myself at Wake to get in, and it just meant more to me. And so even the decision to go there was like, okay. And when I got there, everyone was like, what are you doing here? Like, you don't fit. You should be at NYU or, like some big city school. But I think it was the best decision I could have made for my life at that time, because it really prepared me for corporate America. When I got there, I was an art minor and I had no idea what I wanted to study. And at sports marketing, those things didn't even exist really back then. And I didn't even know what marketing was, to be honest. But communications, I was drawn to, actually it was cultural anthropology. It was going to be my first major. And it was because I was curious about cultures and people. And that was from traveling as a kid and being able to do that stuff. But wondering why people did what they did. And I saw cultural anthropology as the answers, like Jane Goodall, being able to look at people and be a participant observer and just see. Like, I love that idea. And it was kind of creative too, and kind of opened up different paths. But they dropped the anthropology major my sophomore year, and they're like, all those classes are going to communications. So I was like, all right.
I'll follow that.
But comms was seen as the easy major because all the athletes were in communications, and it was like, it was always the thing. I didn't want to be in broadcast. I was total fear of public speaking, didn't like talking at all. So that wasn't it. I was going to be a professor ultimately, because I loved learning and I loved teaching.
But then you're staying close to your artist roots though. And I think that's fascinating they're telling you that art isn't going to pay off, but you're still keeping that in the tuck and you're still creating.
Well, it was a hobby. Like I just enjoyed it. It was passion. And I ended up having, I want to say in high school it started, I had a guy who was a friend of the family who was a lawyer, and he was like, your art's really good. I'll be your manager. And I was like, okay. And I was selling art pieces, and he helped hook me up with like galleries, and I would do exhibitions and traveled. I went to other parts of Florida. I remember, and I'm thinking back now, I'm like a junior in high school. My mom's taking me to Sarasota and Tampa for these art exhibits, which was cool. But when I got to college, like I was still doing that. And then I had basketball players in the Heat that loved my art, and they would wanted to buy my art. And so it became a little business on its own. So I'm kind of like, why would I I'm already doing that. You know what? I'm checking that box. I remember at Central when I was there, they had an art exhibit and asked me, and I went and displayed art there. So it was always because I was already doing it, I didn't think I necessarily needed to go to school for it, or which I was always going to be there in my mind.
But back up, even like as you talk about these two worlds of art and the heat, the big thing that I'm drawn on is you still have a lot of those heat relationships, and
Yeah.
people are
They're like a family, man. Heat
buying
fam.
into the authentic version of you. They're not asking you to change who you are, and you're also getting this like artistic outlet. And at Wake, that almost didn't happen because you didn't get a chance to pursue graduate studies there. And so it's like a lot of things happening all in the same package of you being yourself, you not getting opportunities over here, but then the relationships are kind of helping you move forward in life.
I can't speak to it. I mean, I think a lot of times, and I won't even. I know people who like to network.
Mm-hmm.
I hate networking,
Mm-hmm.
like with a passion.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
go to an event and they're like, "Oh, here's a business card. Hey,"
Mm-hmm.
like I will be in a corner. I'm not talking to anyone, but I'll probably talk to the person next to me. Me and that person will be friends for the rest of my life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's always more of the depth and the quality of the relationship. So I knew some people at the Heat. I didn't know everybody, but I
Yeah.
knew some people. But based on the people that I knew, like though, and maintaining that over time, I didn't see that as effort because it was genuine.
Mm-hmm.
I would design Christmas cards every year just because of my passion for art. My mom was a big card giver. Someone reminded me of that the other day because I still give greeting cards. I'm like one of the only people in my friend group. And they're like, we always look forward to your
Do you make them
card.
still?
Yeah. So now it's my daughter and
Yeah.
me in our travels, or sometimes I want to put her art on some. But I used to draw and design greeting cards. It was like a joy for me. And then over time, my mom needed some help with some health issues that she had. So I was selling them to make money to help take care of her at one point. But people would get those cards and they would remember it. Like even right now, my current boss, Steve Coonan, he was one of my mentors when I started out as an intern at Turner. And he literally is like, I still have the cards that you gave me back in 2002 and 3. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I didn't see any of that as unique or different because it was what I grew up doing and seeing. But in the world, it's so differentiated.
Yeah.
And so people claim that as authenticity because they're like, oh man, she does what she does. Like that's a Melissa thing. Like, but I had never tried. It was like the difference between like trying and just being. I'm
Yeah.
always kind of like, what you see is what you get. I can't do anything different. Can't be nothing different.
But I love that because it's the gift and the curse where also when you leave school, then you're too creative to be in the MBA. But talk about that because you get the roadblock, but then you take a different path by still being able to be yourself.
Wild because I remember vividly how much I had a little notebook that I kept of all the people I wanted to meet. Like I'm gonna meet Stevie Wonder, I'm gonna meet Quincy Jones, like all these people. And there was a woman named Leah Wilcox who works for the league, and I had her name written down. I was like, I'm gonna work for the NBA in Secaucus, New Jersey.
Yeah.
That was the goal in college. Mm-hmm. And so when I was about to graduate, I applied for a management training program and I'd done research on it, found it, and then I remember going back home and I said, hey, can I get Alonzo to write me a letter? Mm-hmm. I went to, Pat Riley's assistant. I'm like, you think he would write? And she was like, well, if you draft something, he may sign it. And sure, like they both did letters for me.
You got letters from Zoe.
Yeah.
And
Pat Riley.
And Pat Riley.
So I'm like, NBA, you want to hire me. This is the job for me. And, I submitted it. They called me. I did the interview. I thought everything went great. And then when they called me back, they were like, they talked about it, like, you came highly recommended. Mm-hmm. I was like, great.
I got it. I'm in here.
And they're like, unfortunately, this internship requires different skill sets. And, we see your background, your creative background. And, they weren't a creative organization. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, you're too creative for this role. And I was crushed. So I'm like, what do you mean? Now, as an adult who works with the NBA, like their business is licensing and rights. They're so legal, like they're all attorneys. Like they say NBA stands for nothing but attorneys, and it's like a bad joke, but it's real. And so I understand it now, but then I had no clue, that was what I was going to do. So I was like, well, I'll stay in school, and then for Wake to be like, oh, we love you, you're awesome. We think you're using this as a crutch, which I absolutely was.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're not going to give you anything to fall back on because we believe that you're destined for bigger and better things, whatever those may be. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to take it at that time because that was the dream. Mm-hmm. So when the dream is deferred or crushed, not even deferred, it was like, no, this is not for you. I was just kind of like, well, I'll figure something out, which is really, and I'm sure I was applying for jobs until I learned about Turner Broadcasting. And that was such a gift at the time because I didn't even know what Turner was. Like, I had a cousin who went to Spelman. I think I went to her graduation. It was the only time I'd ever been here. Didn't know what a Turner was, but all it said was send us your talent and a project. And that was the brief. But as a creative, I was so intrigued by the brief. I just got excited about making something to submit.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what the job was. I was like, let's just make something cool.
And who told you about that opportunity?
It was a woman named Beth Hutchins, who was an admin in the communications department, who, you know, every time she was always the most encouraging, sweetest woman. I obviously didn't have classes with her, but she just always remember. She would write me on Facebook to this day and being like, I loved you so much and you were so amazing. And Beth said, I got this thing. And as soon as I saw it, I thought of you because of your creative background. And she's like, I don't know what the job is. They never tell you what the job is. All it says is Turner trainee team, you know, be one of 6 interns at Turner, send us your talent in the project. There is no job description even. So once you submit your project, they look at them, and then based on all the different people who need interns, they'll kind of vet them and then reach out based on who they think would do good in their company and then tell you what the job may be. So TNT Marketing reached out to me and said, hey, we loved your TV guide, because I made a magazine, and they said, you sold yourself so well to us, we think you would do a great job of selling our content to consumers. It was a TNT marketing job. I didn't take a marketing class in college. So to me, like, the innate knowledge of, you know, branding and trying to, you know, stand out through design and creative was a little bit of what art is, but not knowing how to apply that in a business sense. But all of that happened through that random project.
But it's still, though, like, somebody knowing enough about you to then put something on your radar and you still operating in your strengths. Like, this is the thing that I think I do really well.
You know, it's wild because at first I didn't. So my initial answer to this brief was, I'm going to design a Powerpuff Girl and I'm going to sew it, and she's going to have a briefcase, and the briefcase is going to hold my slides, and she's going to have locks because I wanted to have long locks one day. And that was like the goal. I can't sew for nothing. And so I drew it. I think I even got the materials, and it was terrible. And I'm looking at the sketches of what I was going to create. And I was like, those sketches are what became the like last couple of pages of that magazine. So it evolved to that. It was never like, this is what I'm going to do. But I just believe that, you know, you're led in ways. Sometimes you know, sometimes you don't. It just kind of goes the direction it needs to go.
How long did you stay at Turner? What came next? Why'd you leave Turner?
I mean, Turner was, I feel like I was trying to leave it every other day. So I got there. It was an 11-month internship, baptism by fire. They don't tell you anything about it. And the woman who was there before me didn't get a job. So I had heard about it from the day I started. It's like, oh, Jen was great. I'm like, what happened to Jen? She's like, oh, I don't know. She's not here. So to me, it was never a sure thing. But about 6 months into my internship, I made such an impact on the team. They were like, hey, we'd love to offer you a job. Mind blown. And everyone around me that were older, I was the only kind of intern of color in that group. I think they had one admin in another kind of part of the department, but no one looked like me. And so I remember at times feeling like I kind of needed to assimilate to fit in, and got some great advice, actually from Steve at the time. It was like, don't do it, be you, bring all your creative and culture and everything. So that advice was great, but I decided when they offered me the job that I don't want to settle down. So a lot of them were like in their 30s, got married, they had dogs and starting to have kids. And I was like, I'm like 22. I had done a semester abroad in London in undergrad and loved it. My family from Jamaica had moved to London, so I had some fam there. And I decided I wanted to have a UK experience in education. I wanted to live in London, really. And I didn't know how to do it other than going to school. So I applied for a master's program there and got in. So when they offered me the job, I was like, I'd love to stay. But I really want to go get my master's, and I had learned about brand strategy during that internship. And so I want to focus on branding. They were incredibly supportive, let me extend my internship for a while. I decided I needed to raise money because there was no financial aid happening. And so I had to beg for $20,000. Can't say beg, I had to ask. Even that, like, I would never ask for money because that was not what I did. And one of my colleagues was like, why don't you just ask people for it? Like, put together a proposal. And so I did. I shopped it, and an old basketball player from the Heat ended up sponsoring me to go to grad school. So once I got that, I was like, I'm out. So when I went to London, I met someone from CNN in Atlanta who connected me to someone in the UK office. I ended up interning at Turner UK, which was not at all the plan. So I kind of left Turner to come back to Turner. It was pretty much a full-time job while in school full-time. So it was a lot. And then at the end of my program, the folks in Atlanta had said from the day that I left, they're like, if you want to come back, you let us know.
Yeah.
Give us 2 weeks. I called them and said, hey, I think I may need to come back. I'm over here. My mom was still disabled and she was living by herself in Miami, so I needed to be closer. 2 weeks later, I got an offer to come back, but I'd gotten this degree in brand strategy. I was so excited about it. And they're like, we have a job in design, because everyone knew me as the art girl, the creative. And so I got a job in creative, but we were building an internal agency at the time. And so because I knew marketing's language and I knew creative's language, I could be an asset to help.
2 worlds.
Yep. And that was one of the best things, I think. So for 3 years, I worked in this creative team as a graphics producer, which I did not want to be. So I feel like I was always like applying for jobs and trying to get out, and nothing panned out.
Yeah.
I really wanted to work in brand strategy, nothing. And then ultimately, a friend of mine had a t-shirt company called Free Hugs. And no, actually I wasn't a friend, a person had on a shirt that said Free Hugs. And I was like, that's cool. I bought a shirt, really loved what the people that created it did. I reached out to them. I was like, let me be your head of brand strategy. They were like, who are you? I was like, I help you grow sales. I did. And ultimately I became their director of brand strategy, brought them and Turner together, did a promotion. And then the Turner folks saw me as a brand strategist and they're like, oh, we may have a job for you. So finally I was able to get a brand job at Turner, and it was, branding Court TV, rebranding Court TV to True TV.
Yeah.
Did that for a year. Then every time I thought I was leaving, someone would tap me on the shoulder and be like, hey, we have this opportunity. Would you like to be the director of insights and inspiration, media trends and consumer insights? I don't know what that is, but that sounds like a cool job. I'll take it, So I go roll over there. And then it was working for Turner Classic Movies and brand strategy. Then it was Cartoon Network and Adult Swim. And so with every opportunity, it was still growing different skill sets, was looking at business strategy. So I was actually there for about 11 years.
Yeah.
And hopped around. And so I started as an intern, and my final role was working in Turner Sports, and it was a VP of marketing and content for a digital health and wellness startup. And when the opportunity came to me, I was working for Cartoon Network, and I was on a task force. And as a piece of the task force, that became a business unit. Every mentor I had in Turner was like, do not take that job. Like, Turner is not strong in launching new businesses, especially digital. But I had done everything else at the time. I'm like, I did the creative thing. I did the brand strategy thing. Like, I did things I didn't think I would ever do, business strategy. And it was all digital. And that was the next wave. And I was like, I really want to learn. So against every mentor tells you not to do something, I was like, I kind of want to do it.
For it. Yeah.
So I did it. And it was great. I learned a lot. I got to help make a show called Cook Your Ass Off, which I thought was really funny because it was a healthy cooking show.
Yeah.
In New York. I got to be closer to production, which I wasn't before, building out apps. And at the time I'd gotten married, I was pregnant. And then I think we launched a brand. It was called Upwave. It was part Healthy Living Network. So HLN had content, we had app, we had mobile, all types of stuff. 6 months after we launched the brand, the CEO of the company left. The CFO of the parent company came in as CEO. And we were the last business started and the first one cut. And so totally got laid off. Literally about to drop a kid any day. And they were like, well, I had to lay off my team. And then I think I had maybe like a couple weeks left, and then my daughter came. So my Turner career, they used to have me recruiting interns for the companies. They're like, oh, look at this, success story. Even HR was like, you can't leave. I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like, and so that was it. That was how I exited. And I probably had tried 50 times before, applying for agency jobs and, looking at New York or LA or nothing worked. But ultimately I was where I was supposed to be, even if I didn't think so at the time. And so when I got laid off, I was like, all right, I had my daughter. About a month later, I ended up going to a draft party as a fan. Ran into Steve, was an old mentor from the time I was an intern. He was president of TNT when I was an intern. And that first year in Atlanta, I made no money. So I was a ball girl for the Hawks too, mopping up sweat on the court for the Hawks. So he would sit courtside and see me. So he knew I loved basketball. He knew I loved branding. And he's like, hey, I'm needing some help building a brand. We're redesigning a jersey. Would you mind coming and sitting in on meetings? Because I don't have a woman's perspective. I love your perspective as a creative and your experience in branding. And I was like, great, sure. Did it for free. Just sat in on meetings. And here we are now, almost 11 years later.
I think two things, though. You did Free Hugs for free, no pun intended.
Oh, yeah. Free hugs for free.
And
Absolutely.
then you did this opportunity for free?
I was so grateful, one, to get out my house, but two, like, who gets a chance to design a jersey for an NBA team? Like, that was such an amazing creative exercise.
But sometimes when the business isn't right on the front end, people don't take the opportunity. And it seems like you're leaping at opportunities that can grow you, that can stretch you, that can challenge you, with no certainty of what they lead to after that.
For good and bad.
Yeah.
I mean, even to this day, because I'm in the middle of it now still.
Yeah.
It's definitely a leap. And I think so much of it for me was like, I was just always going with passion. And I was like, if you're interested in this, you know, like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
You'll be okay. Famous last words. But at least in that, like, there was no downside. It was like, hey, do you want to come in and help out? Sure. And, you know, sitting in on 1 or 2 meetings ended up becoming 3 to 5 meetings. And by the, you know, 7th meeting, he's like, hey, I feel like we should like pay you. Like, would you be willing to consult? Absolutely. I'm happy to, I would have still kept doing it for free. And that was just for passion. And I started consulting, and then that turned into, you know, hey, we need to build a brand. Would you come on board as a vice president of brand strategy for the Hawks? Yes, I will. And from then, the world changed. We had some changes in the organization. We had to sell to new ownership. And that was a lot to deal with and kind of push through in ways that I hadn't been stretched previously. But, you know, I can look back at it now and I'm like, wow, like, we did so much and learned so many things. And even through COVID, you know, like, you're a pro sports team and your goal is bringing people together en masse, and you can't do that. We got really smart in other ways. And so I remember when I started, Steve was like, this is a 3 to 5 year job. Because in sports, after 3 to 5 years, you get atrophy. You're doing the same things over and over again. It's a new season, new players. And I'd say in the history of our organization, I don't think we've had as much change as we have over the last 11 years. After new ownership, you know, practice facilities, redoing our arena, you know, new naming rights partnerships, COVID, digital, now AI, and the world of that. So I feel like I'm constantly being challenged and growing, and then I've gotten new departments and things thrown at me. So it evolves.
What are you learning about yourself through this process, and how are you learning how to navigate transition just as a leader throughout this process?
Well, you know, it's funny. When I got promoted to CMO, I was probably like 35, 36. So I was like, me? See, and I didn't even want the job. Actually, I turned it down.
Why?
Because I was like, I liked being a team of one. I was kind of like an internal consultant. That was cool. That just seemed like a lot in marketing. I was like, I don't want to do marketing. I want to do brand strategy, which is an element of marketing. But I was like, the day-to-day of that just seemed like so much. And Steve was like, okay, you don't want to do it? Cool. We'll do this business strategy thing over here. I was like, a year later, he's like, hey, I might need you to step in as CMO. I was like, no, I'm good. I like being over here. I like what I'm doing.
How long did you fight him?
Probably like a good 2 years.
Is it purely you just want to do brand strategy? Is there some imposter syndrome?
I'm sure it was all of the above. I mean, probably a little imposter syndrome, but much more like I had already had a team. I had people reporting to me. Like, I like the freedom of being a consultant, so I can come in and go and help different departments and not be tied down to one. And I didn't know what CMO meant at the time. The person who was previously in the role had been there 18 years. They'd done it a certain way that I was like, that's not me. I'm not doing that. And I remember him saying, he's like, all right, Melissa, I need you to do this. Like, I need this one element. It was really helping our marketing strategy and kind of get some campaign management and some elements. And it was very much a strategic operational job. And I was like, I kind of like that too. I'm a creative, but I also very like type A and organized and planning. So I was like, okay, I think I can maybe see that. And I was just like, CMO. And I was like, why me? And he's like, because you don't want it.
Yeah.
And I was so intrigued. And I'm like, what? He was like, most people are driven by the perception of power, you know, the perception that, oh, they're going to make a lot of money. They want to boss people around. And I have a motto that I've always had is like, I just want to make dope shit. It's what I'm here to do. I want to do something cool. I want it to be differentiated. I want to create impact. And that passion is what he saw. He was like, that's what I need. And I was like, well, the person who was in this role, like, they did all this. He was like, I don't want that. I want you to do this in the way that you need to do it. At the time, I'd gotten divorced. I was a single mom. I was like, this is a lot of responsibility. And, you know, and it was probably a fraction of what I actually do now is what I'm talking about. And he was just like, well, what do you need in order to be successful? And I said, you know, I want an executive coach. And he was like, that's the most interesting thing. Because he's like, most men, if I give them a coach, they would think they're being fired.
What internally is telling you, go develop
Because I didn't know what I didn't know.
Mhm.
And I've never been a C-level executive. I didn't know what comes with that. There were so many things, and I was like, I have gaps and I want to be
Yeah.
able to fill those gaps. And it was different at Turner because I could look upward and I could see a lot of other people who may have been in senior roles that could be mentors. The Hawks were a much smaller organization,
Yeah.
and my mentor is now my boss. So I
Mm.
didn't have a look up. I didn't know other teams around the league and other CMOs that I could reach out, which I do now. But I was like, how do I get that in a way that's going to help prepare me for this work? And so the idea of I've never had an executive coach, I didn't even know what that really meant. Almost kind of like executive therapy
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
way.
yeah.
And so he agreed to it, and I got a 360 done, and I learned so much about myself. I was a micromanager. Because I was so used to being a doer.
Uh-huh.
You get a project, and it's like, all right, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to knock it out. I know it's going to be great. So now I'm giving people projects, and as soon as I give it, I'm like, okay, how's it going? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do that? And they're like, fall back.
Chill.
Great. And even as a leader, I wanted to be helpful, and what I thought was helpful wasn't. And so it was probably the best thing I ever did for myself at that stage of my career, was just kind of getting this broader perspective. And then, hey, here are some tools you can use. Here are some books you can read. I was always the one that was raising my hand to take the notes and sitting, because I was used to being the doer.
Yeah.
There was this book called Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. And it was talking about how women have a tendency to not speak up in meetings and, sit in the back of the room. And I was doing all those things. And so it was so helpful to be like, this is what executive presence is. This is,
Yeah.
so I, hands down, one of the most helpful things. But from that was my growth, learning how to really be a leader for my team, learning how to get people much smarter than me around and give them what they need and then get out the way so they can do their best work. And now, it's been 11 years since I've been there. So clearly it's been a good thing. We've accomplished a lot. The team is great. I mean, and there was a lot of turnover before. Like, I've had the same team working with me for a while, and they've been great. But now I care about them as people. At the end of the day, I was like, whether the Hawks are great or not, like, how do I help leave you better than you were when I found you or when we started working together? And that's the tact I take for everything.
What's your balance between, you've continued to go self-develop or find development, whether it's through formal education or leadership, but then you're an artist at heart that you can kind of flow just wherever you want to go.
We call it playing the gray.
Playing the gray. What is the balance between knowing when you need to develop and just kind of trusting your gut to figure it out over time?
I mean, I think it's much more art and science. I mean, I think internally there's a lot of data, from a core business perspective day to day. So like we're looking at much more now as we've gotten savvier. But personally, a lot of it is gut. A lot of it is just the way that the world kind of evolves. 2 years ago, I had a friend that wanted me to invest in a wellness startup. And I was like, no, I'm not an entrepreneur. I like being corporate. That's what I am. I'm good with that. And I had an executive coach who was like, hey, what's your world after the Hawks? What do you think? What do you think about entrepreneurship? And I'm like, nope, not me, not at all. And really taking time to understand what generational wealth is and how to build that, and thinking of my daughter, I was like, you know what? If you never take a leap, you don't know.
Yeah.
And at this stage of my life, I'm in my early 40s, and I'm like, well, it's probably better to do it now than, wait till you're closer to retirement. And so I leapt.
Yeah.
And the world shifted under my feet after I did it, in ways that I couldn't have anticipated. But now, I am a majority owner of a wellness center in Buckhead, and every day is a new learning. And I really was an investor in it, but there's so much that I didn't know going into it. And so now it's a pivot point, because and I had no desire to leave the Hawks, nor am I going to. And so it's like, okay, great, let's work this out. Things that always, the best laid plans don't necessarily work out the way in which you want. And so even in taking that leap, I've probably learned more in the past year and a half working on this than I have in the last 10 years in very different ways. And so I would have never gotten that development had I not left in a very different way.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for it. But then there's also self-realization. And I'm like, okay, is this where I want to be? And I'm very much like, once you start something, you finish it. This is what you do. It's culturally ingrained. But I had to take a step back and say, you know what, maybe this is great, but maybe this role is not for me, or this thing isn't for me. So let me look at how I can make shifts so that this can work within my life or in ways that it needs to. Because my number one job is being Marley's mom.
Yeah. And how talk about that, because you have a demanding job. Your mom, that's also very demanding. You try to balance yourself. and all the other responsibility. How are you doing all of that at the same time?
You asked me yesterday, I'd be like, not very well. I wrote a book, my book From Ball Girl to CMO, and I do some keynotes every now and then, different universities, or people may ask. I'm excited to, I'm speaking at Home Depot in a couple of weeks. It's great because people are inspired and they want to understand the story. And I feel like because of all the lessons I've learned, I just want to help people as much as I can. And that's always been a constant. That probably came from my mom being a nurse. Like, I just want to help people. But I get up 3 days a week and go to the gym, which I probably started about 2-3 years ago. And that has helped me a lot just in making sure that I take care of me. Like literally on my calendar, it says, take care of me. It was 3 days. Now it's every day, 5 a.m. That's my time to shine. I'm a morning person. So that's a constant, but sometimes I'm just like, I need a break. And I love a carnival. I love soca. I love to dance. And so I'm like, y'all, I need to go to a fete, or I'm going to Trinidad, or whatever it is. And while people are like, what? Like, that's how I pour into me. Like, that's important. Or
is that the best carnival in your opinion?
I mean, no, I don't, I can't say yes, I can't say no. I enjoy all of them in different ways. I actually just went to Grenada for the first time last year, and it blew my mind. I want to go back again this year. That was special.
Yeah.
So to authenticity, like that had a lot of heart, and the people of Grenada represent for their culture in ways that I've like just not seen anywhere else, which I loved. I think that making time for the things that are important to me is it, and it ebbs and flows. And I'll tell everyone, there's no such thing as work-life balance. I think it's harmony. And right now I'm in a working a lot season. We're in season for basketball. You know, my daughter, this morning I was at a moving up ceremony, figuring out what middle school to high school transition is going to be like. It's just there's a lot in life right now. And a lot of my friends in their mid-40s are taking care of elderly parents. My father is in Orlando. He has dementia. And so trying to make time to go to visit him and you know, see how he's doing. My stepmom is amazing. And, you know, obviously does a lot, but it's a lot for her. So trying to give her breaks. And so sometimes I think too much about other people and not about myself. And so it's been a constant battle for me to be like, okay, Mel, like you need a woosah. Like we need to take a beat, you know, whether it's, you know, gonna go to the spa, I'm just gonna sit here and do nothing. Over the holidays, I was telling one of my good friends, like, what did you do? I was like, I watched all of Stranger Things. I watched multiple seasons. I sat on the couch. My daughter was like, can we go outside? I'm like, no.
It's my time.
I don't want to do anything.
This is my time.
It's rare. And so you know, leaning into that when I can and not feeling bad about it. It's important, but you know, ebbs and flows.
As we come down the home stretch, a few questions. As you get further removed from being able to spend summers in Jamaica or Belize or being entrenched in, you know, Miami that raised you, how do you stay yourself? Because being yourself and the perspectives you've gained has worked so well, but now you're in different environments, different worlds, and the demands kind of pull you away from that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I feel like my family, my daughter keeps me the most grounded because she like, people are like, your mom is so cool. I'm like, no, she's not. She's just like, yeah, no, that's just my mom. And so keeping people around me, like I have a lot of friends that I've had since I was an intern at Turner or from high school. And most of those people are the folks that I talk to just about every day the most. Not that I'm kind of team no new friends, but like my peeps keep me grounded. I haven't switched up, you know, like how I live or what I do or what I enjoy. Even the parties I would go to when I first moved to Atlanta, they had a reunion party. I was there and people were like, oh, look at you, superstar. And I'm like, nah, man, it's just me. And it's funny, this morning I was in the office and one of the guys on my team was like, hey, boss. I'm like, I'm not the boss. I'm Melissa. Like we're all here. We're all a part of this team. He was like, no, you're the boss. I was like, no, Tony Wrestler is the boss. You know, I said, I am here warming a seat. And I say it all the time, but I genuinely mean it. I'm grateful for the opportunity. And I think that perspective is important. And I was like, if they ask me to go mop the sweat at a game tomorrow, I know how to make a mop and I could go and do it. And I'm not above or below anything. And I think for me, keeping that and knowing that, getting laid off was probably one of the hardest things and the best things that ever happened to me. Because, you know, corporate gives you this false sense of security. And I saw it early because a lot of people around me, especially at Turner, they called it Turner 2020. A lot of people got laid off before they started selling the company people define themselves by their job.
Yeah.
Like their identity is wrapped up in what they got to check for every day. And I saw people got laid off and it was like they got divorced. They were bawling and how could they do this to me? And I'm like, it's business. It's a company, you know? And I think keeping that perspective and knowing it, and I said it to the guy this morning, I said, at any moment, HR can come to my office and say, Melissa, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for what you've offered. You know, we're going to have to go in a different direction. Because I got laid off once, in my mind, it could happen any day. Yeah. So like I'm mentally prepared for it. I was like, ah, man, that kind of sucks. But you know, because I enjoy doing what I do. Yeah. But I know that I am still me and I will be okay. Yeah. And I think that perspective is really what keeps me the most grounded because, you know, we're all here for, you know, a short time.
You're going back to the office in your sweats today, right?
I was there all morning in
this.
This me. It's Hawks too. And it's Hawks swag.
I think it's so dope that you're authentically yourself. Can that work, or how can that work for other people that are trying to be themselves? And you're like one of the only ones in the spaces that you occupy, and so there's even more weight of, you know, representing a whole class of people while being yourself. So how do you?
I don't allow myself to feel that, first of all.
Okay.
Because the weight of that is like, you know, everybody's coming with me like, okay, I'm happy to represent, but I know that I am just me.
Yeah.
If it goes left, like it was me that went left, not everybody.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'll say it can't, hopefully it could work for everybody, but it can't work for everyone in the same way. And when I talk to younger professionals, I say this, I'm like, different cultures require different things.
Yeah.
I was blessed and fortunate to come up in Turner Broadcasting, which was a super creative culture. If you work for CNN, maybe not as creative as Cartoon Network and Adult Swim, but what Ted Turner built and his legacy in Atlanta, it was so creative and so special at that time. So I could come in to a TNT where most people did not look like me, but still be me and contribute.
Yeah.
And that was important. If I worked for, you know, a law firm or something else, I may not be able to kick it in these sweats. Like that's not the culture of the space. So while you're interviewing for jobs, you know, you're interviewing them culturally and they're interviewing you too. And sometimes like some things may just not be a fit.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I fit in places that I went. As a matter of fact, when I started at the Hawks, Steve was like, hey, you guys can wear jeans. And they were in suits every game day.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Suits? Like that was not a Turner thing. Well, it was partially a Turner thing, but it was a sports thing. He's like, relax. And so now over time, we've built a culture that's been much more embracing of who the full person is. And there are times where I do have to wear a suit, you know, depending on what I'm doing or content. And so I don't see it as switching up. I just see it as being appropriate for the environment. But I'm still me within whatever that is. If I had a job that's like, hey, you got to cut your hair, or we don't like nose rings or whatever, then I'm like, that may not be the environment for me. Now, if I was in a different position as my first job, I may have to, now I tell everyone, I'm like, I find that a lot of people are afraid to embrace their full self because what they think others will say. You know, there was a woman who met with me and she was just like, I just love that you unapologetically are you and you wear your hair this way. And I forgot what company she worked for. And she was an older woman too. And you know, she's like, whenever I go on vacation and I get my hair braided, I always make sure that I get it done after I leave. And before I come back to the office, I take it out. And I was like, why? She was like, oh, because they're going to ask all these questions. They're going to touch it. And I was like, why don't you just keep it for an extra week next time see what happens? And I remember her reaching back out to me and she was like, Melissa, thank you so much. Like I was so worried about what I thought they were going to say. And like, they loved it. Everyone was like, oh, you should wear your hair like that all the time. And here I am thinking that's going to be an issue where it's not. So I do think sometimes like we can be our own worst enemy of the perception that what we think. And sometimes it's true. I'm not saying it's not. Sometimes it's like, but you don't know until you try.
Last question for you. Is there anything you would change on your journey?
Man, it's hard right now. There things that I'm like, why did I do this? But I'm sure in a couple months or, hopefully in a couple months, I'll be like, nope, I see it. I see it. And I really believe that there's no failure. It's all lessons and things that specifically happen in order to get you where you need to go. So in that answer, I would say there's nothing that I would change. Some things that I may tweak, some things I wish I could be like, why'd you do it? But, I am grateful for all the experiences that I've had and where it's brought me to. And I don't know what's next. And it's the excitement of the unknown is great. And sometimes I can overthink myself into like, what's going to happen? I want to know. It was like wanting to see the end of the movie and not knowing what's coming. But I
got a friend that says the unknown opportunities excite me more than the future makes me nervous.
100%. 100%. So I'm excited for what's to come.
I love that. Any questions for me? Yeah.
Well, one, thank you for taking the time. I think this is awesome. I really appreciate the
Yeah,
dialogue.
for sure. You're super dope.
Ditto.
Tremendous respect for you. And I'm a Charlotte guy, so supporting the Hawks is the work that you and Steve and everyone's doing. Of paying attention to what y'all are doing. But please keep up the great job, and just keep being you, man. It's just super dope to connect with you again.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
For sure, for sure.